Yeah, Urko. Hey, 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 look. Yo, what's up? I go by the name of Steph Urko, and welcome back to another episode of Millennial Dungeon. How's everybody doing this beautiful weekend? Me, I'm having a good weekend. Memorial Day weekend, everybody turning up. We getting lit out here. I can smell the grill from a mile away. You know what I'm saying? If anybody got some fish or some salmon, just please hook me up. Please. I'm saying, or at least some mac and cheese, something. You know what I'm saying? I can't eat meat out here. So whatever. Um, we got a wonderful co-host again, Afro. What's up?
Hey everyone,
How you been?
I'm good. How are you?
You already know I don't know. I'm kicking it like a donkey, but I'm still trying to be funky. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm chilling. I'm cool. You know what I'm saying?
good.
You got any plans this weekend?
Not too much, a cookout or two. You know how we
Nice.
do. I
No,
can eat meat, so.
but the question is, anybody got no salmon? Any fish? Something? Not no veggie burger? No, not.
I, Tomorrow, yes, I think there will because the party I'm going to, one of the person whose house it is, one of them is a vegetarian, so there
One of
should
them.
probably be some there.
I feel bad for those people at cookouts. You know what I'm saying? Though that one vegan or that one vegetarian, people be, oh, look at this dude right here. You know what I'm saying? All you eat is corn and mashed potatoes and sweet potato. No, man.
All the good stuff, all the sides.
Yeah, all the sides. That's all you get. Maybe a slice of bread. I feel bad for them people.
Maybe a slice.
But
I
I
had a
hope
cousin who
everybody
would
stay.
bring her own stuff.
Huh?
Bring, I had a cousin who would bring her own meal to the cookout.
Yeah, you can do that, or you can just throw your own. You know what I'm saying?
True.
You might as well do that.
Yeah.
But I hope everybody be safe out here. You know what I'm saying? Times getting crazy out here. I hope everybody be safe. Spend time with your loved ones in a safely manner. You know what I'm saying? You don't gotta have 100 people at your crib. You know, and just enjoy your weekend. It's supposed to be nice. But today's topic, talking about kids, people. You know what I'm saying? And we got our and we got our co-host Amari herself, aka Afro, and she's gonna introduce the topic. So go for it.
So I don't know where I heard this originally. Just someplace in the news. My dad watches the news nonstop. Probably. That's probably where I heard it. But I like briefly heard that the birth rates in the United States was declining. And I had heard about this topic before because like I took AP environmental in high school, I was smart or whatever. And we talked about how birth rates, how it can affect the environment, and what are the factors for, birth rate. So often in like developing countries, the birth rate is higher because they're having more children because children are often used for labor. And also, it's not expected for all of your children to live into adulthood. So you have to have a larger family kind of to survive. While in more developed nations, such as like the United States, the United Kingdom, Italy, etc., the birth rates um, have been declining or were maintaining. So I know when I was in high school, they were saying, oh, the US birth rate wasn't really changing much, or there wasn't, significant data to show that it was changing. But like places like Italy and other countries in Europe, that it was declining. And so when I heard that, it piqued my interest. And so obviously I was in high school and like I took AP environmental in like 2011. So the data in our textbook is not going to be as accurate as, data today. Um, And so when I was looking up for this topic, I found that since 2007, the birth rate in the United States has declined by 20%.
Mm.
So, and I'll just read this to you because I thought it was interesting. It said the Great Recession disrupted a stable period in birth rates. For almost three decades between 1980 and 2007, the US birth rate hovered between 65 and 70 births per 1,000 women between the ages of 15 and 44. The birth rate followed a predictable procyclical pattern, falling, falling during economic downturns and recovering from the economy when the economy improves. But something changed around the time of the Great Recession. The birth rate fell precipitously and did not recover when the economy improved. Rather, the US birth rate has continued a steady descent As of 2020, the U.S. birth rate was 55.8 births per 1,000 women between the ages of 15 and 44, a decline of almost 20% from the rate of 69.3 in 2007. And I thought that was really interesting. Um, Everyone knows I'm a teacher, so I'm like really pro kids, but I have some really strong feelings about why, like, it's declining in the United States. I understand why it's declined in Europe, because often in like developed nations, when you don't need to have as many children, you don't. And so it starts to decline because you're not having enough children to more than to like replace the parents. And sometimes if you only have one kid, you're only replacing one of the parents. And so I understood that. But I know I was told because the US has such a large immigration population and we're always having people, new people entering our country, that's one of the things that has prevented our, our birth rates from declining, but now they are. And so I thought it was interesting. I wanted to talk about it. And so what do you think? Why do you think people are not having kids as often or as many?
In the US, why you think I think that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for two main reasons, I feel like on one, financial, and two, obviously the difference in dating culture. Now, when I say financial, I mean like we obviously know in this generation how expensive everything is. Rent is, gas is, like food, but like the cost of living in our generation is at the all-time high. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like when you think about that and like having a child on top of that, it's just like a lot of people can't afford to have a kid, especially if they're only making minimum wage. You know what I'm saying? And we know like how important like being financially stable is when it comes to starting a family. You know what I'm saying? So because when we talked about this before behind the camera and stuff like that, was saying how people be like, money shouldn't matter in a relationship. Yeah, but it does. You know what I'm saying? Not being financially stable in a relationship or a family can make or break a family household. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like a lot of people can't afford to like be out here just starting families, which obviously we see that happen all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That still don't stop people from having kids. So it's like tomato. But I feel like a big reason is financial stability because a lot of us can't really afford to have kids out here when you can't take care of yourself.
Right, definitely. Like a lot of people our age are they might want children, but they are waiting later in life to have children. They're waiting to get their career established, save up some money, potentially buy a house first, et cetera, before.
Yeah.
And I know we're 20 somethings, in our mid 20s, late 20s. Steph.
Damn! Shots fired. You throwing shots.
But a lot of people our age just don't feel established yet.
Yeah.
We want to establish our careers, make our stronghold, make our footholds first, and then, get started. And what I also noticed though, is not just people who, like a lot of people obviously who go to college, like straight from high school, often, wait to have kids. But not even just people who attend a 4-year university or something of that nature. I think even in general, a lot more people are just waiting to have kids because they're like, I can barely afford this rent. How am I going to afford rent and a baby?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I feel that's true too, and it also like I was going to get to my second point, where as far as like dating culture, because like obviously we know how messed up dating is nowadays. You know what I'm saying, like that, and a lot of us like for the most part we see like now with social media and stuff, and like I feel like how aware that this generation is on certain things. We see the aftermath effects of like how on certain relationships or like how our parents raised us and how they can like mentally like damage us. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of us are not trying to raise kids or a family in a broken household. We not trying to bring up a family when the parents are or the relationship ain't stable itself. So a lot of people are waiting for marriage to have kids, which is a fine thing to do. But the problem is a lot of motherfuckers ain't trying to get married nowadays. You know what I'm saying? So, and like the way dating has become, like the standards you have to have, especially as for men, like we have to have in order to like be seen as suitable or good men. in this generation. So it's just like a lot of people ain't trying to get married. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, okay, if we can't, I want kids when I'm married, but if I'm not getting married, I'm not gonna have no kids. So
Right.
so
Well,
what can you
I think people are just waiting until they're older to get married because marriage is a serious commitment. I think in the past it was more so of just something you do. It's a part of it was like the next step. You graduated high school, you
Mhm.
found someone regardless of how compatible you truly were, you married them, you had some kids, you bought a house, you know what I mean, that type of stuff. It was just in the process, like the procession of things. And nowadays we're like, I don't have to follow that procession. Like, I don't have to meet these like certain goals or steps in order to be a fulfilled adult, and I deserve to have a partner that is equal to me,
Mhm.
you know. Because I think we're being more picky, and in some ways, yes, we have superficial things that make it hard, but also we're waiting for someone who we feel like we're truly compatible with, and also who we can build with. It's more than just love. You know, we all know someone, or maybe it's our parents who like they got married and they had kids and they don't really like each other. They're just together because they have kids together, you know? And a lot of us don't want that. We were raised in households where that was maybe the norm. And so I'm gonna wait to get married, and I'm gonna wait to have kids until I know, or till I feel like the situation will not end. It's the intent. Like obviously any marriage can end for whatever reason, but the idea that with a marriage the intentionality is long term. While when you're dating someone, it's not, you know. Why would I want to bring a child into a situation where it's not um when I don't see myself necessarily being with this person long term, or wanting to be with this person long term.
can I ask you something?
Yes.
Because like back in the day, when obviously we talked about this, like back on like our grandparents and stuff, they had like a certain pattern. You know what I'm saying? They meet, they date for a little bit, they get married, then they had sex and have they had their kids and stuff like that. And even sometimes like you kind of see it nowadays where it's like a couple that's super religious or like in tune with God and stuff like that and their spirituality, they want to be like, no, before we have sex and have kids, I want to be married first. And they've been together for a while and stuff, or they might be young sweet high school sweethearts, and they want to wait till marriage because they want things to be everything to be perfect. But obviously, like we said before, this generation is kind of fucked up. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to dating, I'm just gonna say they dating is fucked up. You know, it is what it is. So my question is, do you think it's realistic now to really wait for marriage to have kids in this generation? Because I get what you saying, but it's just like trying to find somebody that's compatible with you on every level is becoming harder and harder now.
I don't think you need to find someone who's compatible with you on every level is the thing. You need to find someone who has their problems just like you have your problems. And even though you both have these struggles or things you're working on within yourself, you decide it's worth it still.
Mm.
A lot of us are deciding certain things just aren't worth the hassle. If you're not willing to grow, why would I want to be with you? If you're not willing to, look past some of my faults, but I'm supposed to look past some of your faults, how am I supposed to, want to marry you? I think really the whole idea of like, I think that idea of like, okay, we're high school sweethearts, we're waiting until marriage to have sex, was part of that pattern we were talking about of people getting married young. They just, now not to say people in the past weren't having premarital sex, because they definitely were, and a lot.
They was
You
knocking
know, the
boots.
baby boom of the 80s.
Yeah, they was knocking boots. You know.
Right. Um, but um part of the reason why people got married so young was to prevent unplanned and or unwanted pregnancies. It wasn't because they thought marriage was like, you know, it wasn't that necessarily that marriage was the long term like goal of, yeah, it's going to be perfect, but more so, how do we keep our kids from having babies
Mhm.
without, a marriage? We're going to push them to get married young. Like there's a lot of cultures that's why they get married young. It's to prevent stuff like that. You can agree with it or disagree with it. I think y'all know what side I lie on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not with it. But that is reason why people got married young.
Yeah.
Is how do we prevent these young women from, having babies outside of marriage? We push them to get married younger or, stuff like that. But I don't think waiting for marriage is unrealistic to have a kid. I think really we just have grown up in a time where you're allowed to be fulfilled without a partner.
Mm-hmm.
So people are a little pickier, a little choosier in who they want to spend, quote unquote, the rest of their life with. And I think that's okay. It's hard when you're dating. It's really hard when you're dating. But I think in the long term, people in our generation are less likely to get divorced only because they waited until they were more mature.
Mm-hmm.
They knew what they wanted, and they were willing to compromise in ways that maybe other people weren't. There are benefits to getting married older in life, is my point. Like when you're little, when you have seen and experienced more of life.
Mm-hmm. So what you said before, you said in this generation, you think people are less likely to get a divorce?
I think what we'll find in like 20 to 30 years when they're looking at the data is that people in our generation will be less likely. And I only say that because they waited until they were older, because I know just a lot of people who a lot of people rush into marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Marriage is the goal. You know what I mean? Or rather, a wedding is the goal, but marriage and the long time work of it all isn't always the goal.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. We go in with these rose-colored glasses that, oh, we're going to get married and we're going to be soulmates and this is just going to be perfect and it's going to last forever. It's not going to be hard work.
Mm-hmm.
That whole like narrative that marriage isn't about work when it is. And both people have to be willing to put in the work. And I just think if you're waiting until you're in your like early to mid 30s rather than your early to mid 20s, you're more likely to have a long-lasting marriage only because you know who you are and you're well developed in yourself and you are able to be a little more mature about situations, hopefully. And so is your partner. So you're able to grow together in a better way instead of every issue being a toxic fight. I know when I took a sociology class back in the day.
Back in the day.
Yes, right. Most marriages don't make it past the second year or the seventh year. So if you make it past those two, you're more likely to stay married.
Really?
And not to say that I don't think people our age will not get divorced, because they definitely will. But I think because we're taking the idea of marriage and taking the idea of kids more seriously, not just as something to do because it's fun and quirky, we're more likely to have better long-lasting marriages, healthier relationships. Because I don't know, I feel like most of the marriages like that I see, like that I hear about and I've seen from my friends' parents, etc., have been very toxic. We can't just act like the whole idea of like toxic relationships just occurred now, because it's not true. The only difference is people stayed together because of spite and because of kids and because of financials. And now
they didn't have no other options around too.
Exactly. And let's be real, women couldn't even get a credit card in their name until I believe the 1970s. You know? So I could want to I could want to divorce my husband, but I wouldn't have the financial standing to do so. It was really common for women to not be able to divorce their husband. And there was all the guilt. If your husband was beating you, if he was cheating on you, if he was an alcoholic, a lot of the time it was blamed on the spouse. You know, it was blamed on his wife. And she is told that she was not good enough. She was not fulfilling his needs in such way. She was not praying enough. She wasn't attending church enough. And these are things that the church often endorsed. And so, yeah, people were less likely to get a divorce then, and marriages were long lasting, but people weren't happy. I just know a lot of women have had grandmothers say, don't get married, don't do it. And in seriousness, because of situations like that. But I think like that's what you're told as a young girl often nowadays by your grandmother. Like I know my grandmother, I'm pretty sure she did. And but it's because they knew They knew
Yeah.
it would work, and they knew sometimes it was more work than what it was worth, but the ability to leave wasn't there. And then by the time the ability to leave was there, it was like, what was the point?
Yeah. I'm gonna actually play devil's advocate and disagree with you on the whole divorce thing, because I think in the next 10 to 20 years, I think it's gonna get worse. So I disagree with that, because I feel like in our generation, like I get what you saying about like back in our grandparents' day, the reason why divorce rates weren't that high is because like a lot of them stayed through the toxic bullshit, because obviously they had no options and obviously financial stability. But like in this generation, I get that you don't want to go through that same thing, but it's like you said before, a lot of people in our generation don't want to fight for love either. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we nitpick at certain things, and it's like, because it's like you said, we go into relationships with a certain like fairy tale mindset, thinking, oh, they gotta look like this, like my wife gotta look like this, and that, and gotta be this and that. And women go into relationship thinking like, my dream husband gotta be this tall, he gotta have this kind of money, he gotta be nurturing this, and that. But then when you realize, oh shoot, they don't fit every checklist, fulfill every checklist on my thing, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh damn, well, you're not the person I thought you was, so I don't want to work it out. It's like nobody even wants to work it out or try to compromise. I feel like that's one of the reasons why we see divorce in so many of our couples in our generation, because like nobody wants to compromise on things, because people want to say it's either my way or this ain't going to work out. You know what I'm saying? Which is not realistic at all. It's like you said, we in relationships, every relationship takes work. So it's like when you go into a relationship, you can't say like, okay, this is what I need to have. You know what I'm saying? If you don't meet every single thing on this checklist, then you ain't the person I think you is, and you're a liar, and we can't be together. Not necessarily. You know, like if you a teacher, so if you grading a test and that student get a 48 out of 50, technically ain't it perfect, but ain't no 48 out of 50 still A.
Yes, it is.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like we gotta be realistic when we go into relationships too. And it's like a lot of us don't want to be realistic. Like I'm gonna keep it a bit buck with you when it comes to having standards. One of us want to go into relationships thinking everything going to be like a fairy tale out of Disney, and it's not going to be that easy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I feel, and nobody wants to hear the criticism nowadays too. And I feel like that's the hard part about making relationships better, especially like in the Black community. Others don't want to hear criticism, like, because everybody wants to be right about everything instead of just hearing like, well, maybe you do need to do this a little bit more. And well, you got a problem with this? You didn't say that on the first and second date. You had a problem with me. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like I feel like the only way things are going to get better or the divorce rate is going to go lower is if we go into relationships or marriage where a realistic point of view and learn how to compromise on certain things that we actually need versus what we think we wanted when we were 17.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. I 100% do understand what you're saying. But I think people are realistic in that respect. I think so much of our view about relationships, one, is what we experience. And so when you know, and then also what we see in social media. And so that's not real either. But what I do know is a lot of people are working on healing some of the things within them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of talk about making yourself healing those childhood traumas, healing those things that make it hard for you to be in a relationship and to love. And I think if men are doing it and women are doing it, you're more likely to be able to meet in the middle and compromise. And so the different, like, I get what you're saying, like, oh, people nitpick. They do. They do. But also, is that the general of what's going on amongst most people, or is that just what we're seeing glorified? But either way, I think a lot of people are really trying to, even in the Black community, like I know I follow a lot of Black creators on TikTok, and they talk about working on healing those childhood traumas, healing those things about themselves that make it hard for them to be in a relationship, make it hard for them to accept love, and it makes it hard for them to love. And I've seen a lot of people on like things like TikTok who are talking about, you know, ways they want to parent that are different than how our parents' generation parented, that maybe will produce healthier children who have less childhood trauma. You're going to leave childhood with traumas. That's just the way it is. Trauma is just something that changes your brain. And for one person, it might be something really, really bad, and another person, it might be something, like the spoon falling. But regardless, it's trauma. There's levels to it, but we all leave like childhood with traumas. But just I see a lot of conscious efforts by people to do better. But in respect to kids, I think part of the reason people don't want to have kids is they're waiting for marriage. I know, like, I don't want to have kids until I'm married. Um, and that's also kind of why I brought this topic up, because since I've gotten a boyfriend, we've only been together 9 months. Yes. It'll be 10 months
right.
in June. Huh?
You better get it right before you watch this. What you mean 9 months? It's been 10.
No, it'll be 10 months. Wait. You're right. It's going to be 9 months in June. 10 months in July. Listen. It's hard because it's the end of May and it's not June yet. Okay, I would have it right.
I got you.
I remember every month to tell them happy anniversary. Don't worry. But I keep having people ask me when we're gonna have a kid, and I'm like, now wait a damn minute. Wait a damn minute. Like, I've known him for a while. We, because our generation loves to talk, whatever the hell that means. We were talking like on and off for like a couple years, to be honest. But we didn't make it official until this past September. And we became like more serious talking like last March, April. And I only say all this to say, I don't care that we've only been together for 9 months. Why are you asking me when am I going to have a baby?
Yeah.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed even like our friends who are now pregnant are asking and all that type of stuff. And I'm like, 1, we've only been together for 9 months. 2, we're not married. 3, we're not financially stable. 4, things like that I want for myself before I have a kid.
Exactly.
So I just think it's interesting how everyone like keeps bombarding me with those type of questions now that I'm in a relationship. Like, why is that seen as the next step before marriage even? Like, oh, you guys need to have a kid.
Okay. So you were talking about social media, right? And you were saying like how a lot of us look at social media when it comes to certain things, how we move and stuff like that. So my question is, who do you think on social media pressures more when it comes to relationships or starting family or having kids, men or women?
I'm going to say women.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. What we have to remember. No, I was going to say, first we have to remember that like our social media, the algorithms are tailored to us.
Mm-hmm.
They know I'm a woman. They know you're a man. So what they're going to send your way is going to be directed towards you. Like, I know my social media is covered in baby stuff. My TikTok, my Instagram reels, my Facebook reels. Like, I'm inundated in baby stuff 25/8. Like, if I were to count how many like TikToks, reels, whatever, even ads that I get about baby stuff in a day, it's well over 100. And to be honest, a couple months ago, and I don't know why, Snapchat, how they have the filters?
Yeah.
The Snapchat filter that always comes up for me, always, and has been for the last couple months, is a pregnancy test.
They got that as a filter?
Yes, the clear blue filter. Exactly, but you wouldn't know that. If I open my phone up right now and went to Snapchat, I will have a clear blue filter.
What?
So,
what is going on?
So, but I think, 100%, I feel like social media definitely pressures women more about having kids because, women are pressured a lot about having kids socially, and they have been for hundreds of years. Okay, maybe not hundreds of years. I can't speak for hundreds of years, but I can say from like the 50s down, the whole idea of your biological clock is ticking. Like, I have so many friends who are in their 20s still who are worried that they're not going to find someone and be able to have kids one day. And like I have so many friends who had like a timeline for what age they wanted to start having kids at and wanted to be married at and start having kids at, and they feel bad that they haven't reached it. I have a friend who was going to be 30 in November, and she feels like her life is like over in some ways, I guess. Not over, but she just feels old. And she feels like she's not where she's supposed to be in life. And like she's upset that she's not married yet. She's upset that she hasn't started having kids yet and all this type of stuff. And it's just like, homie, 30 is still young. And I think that's where our generation is changing because in the past, 30 was old. And right now it still is, but it's not because we're seeing people living and thriving and starting those milestones that we've always thought as um, for your 20s and their 30s and happier, you know? I sent my mom a video today. Uh, uh, I think it was a Facebook reel, and it was basically a woman saying how there's this question that keeps coming up to women, like, do you regret having kids, basically. And a lot of women feel pressured to have kids, feel like that's just what you're supposed to do. And when you say that you don't want kids, the pushback is crazy. Like I have a decent amount of friends who say they don't want to have kids, and they've been saying it since high school, at like the latest. Some of them were saying it in elementary school. And those viewpoints haven't changed. But whenever they say things like that, um, they're told, "Oh, your opinion's going to change. Oh, it'll change. Wait till you get older. Stuff like that. Oh, you don't want to have kids. That's selfish." Women are told that they are selfish when they say they don't want to have kids. And even women are told that they're selfish when they decide they want to have kids older. Like they want to wait until they're in their 30s to have kids. But long story short, let me come back. Um, the woman in the reel was talking about how basically she hates parenting. Parenting is a lot of work. It's the pits, more or less, but she loves her kids. And if she got to choose them again, she would choose them every time. But would she choose parenting? No. I think there's just a lot more awareness that parenting is hard. It's not easy. It's not it's not like this magical land where you get this child and they're just perfect and like your life is now perfect and complete. You're still a person after it. You know?
I'm glad you actually said that because I feel like a lot of people, or a woman wouldn't actually say that with a part about parenting, because I agree with that. I also agree with the thing about social media pressure on women, but the whole parenting is not a hard thing. That's why, like, I'm not gonna lie to you. A pet peeve of mine is when I hear a lot of women say, "Well, I can raise these kids on my own and stuff like that. Oh, I don't need no man to raise no baby. There's plenty of women that raise their kids." Yeah, but you shouldn't have to. And like when I hear women that say stuff like that, it's just like something is just like cringing. I'm like, ugh. It's like, cause like, why you like? Not to say one person can't raise a baby by themselves, but at the same time, it's just like, why would you get with a man and just be like, I don't need you around, goodbye.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's how kids end up growing up with like when I functional homes, because it's like a lot of women think like, oh yeah, well I can raise kids by myself. I don't need no man. But it's just like, yeah, you can, but why would you want that? And why would you deprive your child from not having two-parent household? You get what I'm saying?
Right. And on the flip side, there are a lot of men who, when you tell them, "Hey, I'm pregnant," they're for it, they're happy, and then the baby comes and they change their mind. Or the baby comes and now the woman is, not only is she taking care of the baby and herself, she's being asked to take care of him. The certain responsibilities of the household that should be distributed aren't being distributed evenly. And so it's like, okay, if I'm having to take care of this baby by myself and take care of the house by myself, I might as well do it by myself, because at the end of the day, that's one person off my plate then.
Mm-hmm. So
I know a lot of people who've been in that situation where it's like,
yeah.
I'm miserable because I'm being asked to do everything. I just had this baby, I'm getting adjusted to motherhood, et cetera, et cetera. And you can't wash the dishes. And if I ask you to wash the dishes, you don't do them, or then you end up yelling at me about it or saying I don't do anything, but I'm the one who's, you know, feeding every 2 to 3 hours. I'm the one who's changing all the diapers, etc. So it's not worth it. And I know like a lot of us have seen situations that are like that, and we go, yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till I'm married because I'm gonna wait till like I have a situation where we've discussed all this. We this was planned. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
think even more so than marriage necessarily, I think more people, or at least more women, want to plan when they have a baby, when they're going to be pregnant, and plan better who they're going to have a baby with. And the issue is sometimes you don't know who you're with until after the child is here. You know,
That
because
does happen.
parenting changes your relationships, and some people can't fix it. They can't grow back together. I feel like having a baby is one of those things where it's beautiful and amazing and scary, and it kind of tears your relationship apart, but you have to work back to get together. You know what I mean? Because you were just two, and now you're three. And how do we change to operate in that respect?
Hmm.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. And you said something in your answer too that kind of stuck out to me, of like making sure you choose the right partner. I like I said before, it's just like I also believe in choosing wisely in your partners, because I'm not going to act like that people can't change after a child, because we've seen that happen all the time. But it's, here's my thing about it too, especially like when it comes to moving on and finding another partner after you have a child and you break up with that your baby father, stuff like that. Okay, so let's say you meet a guy, right? And he ends up not being the dude that you expect him to be after you had a baby. Y'all break up. Now you're left to raise that child all by yourself. Da da da. Now
You shouldn't be.
you shouldn't be, and I said that you shouldn't want to have to raise a child by yourself. So what happens when you try to meet somebody else, another man? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, you're so used to raising that child by herself, and it's like you find a good man that wants to step up to the plate and take care of you and that child like his own and stuff like that. And it's like, won't that kind of get in the way if you had that mindset? It was like, oh, I don't need no man or something like that. Because I've seen a lot of women like with that kind of mindset. Not all, but a lot of them. It's like they're so used to like doing everything on their own, and obviously they have no choice but to do it on their own if nobody else is around. Obviously, but it's like, shouldn't you just leave some like space to be vulnerable when a good man actually comes? Because at the end of the day, you can't really choose like who you pick to have a child with. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can't help it. You know what I'm saying?
I think a lot of the whole idea, like, oh, I can do this by myself, it's a trauma response more so, and it comes from feelings of like you are constantly being put into situations where you're forced to be independent, where people have shown you they can't be relied on. Because let's not act like there aren't a lot of men who aren't reliable partners or reliable fathers. That's not all. There's a lot of men who are. But equally, we see a lot of men who aren't, just because maybe at that moment in their life they're not ready. And that's not to say that there aren't women who are like that, because there are. It goes both ways. I think we sometimes look at it as either or. Men are like this, women are like this. No, it's all a mixing of it all. It's a
Mm-hmm.
mixing pot. There are no perfect women, there are no perfect men, and there are some low dog men and some low dog women, and we're all just trying to meet that middle ground, trying to find that special pear, that special little apple. I don't know.
You talking about fruit trees?
But like that person who we can work with.
Mm-hmm.
But my point being, I think often women who have been forced into situations where they have to rely on themselves say stuff like, "Oh, I can raise this baby on my own," because it's a trauma response. And so, or struggling to be intimate, and I mean that like in a non-sexual manner, struggling to be vulnerable, struggling to be intimate with a man who is taking care of business, who does care about you, is hard when you have maybe experienced nothing but raggediness. And I think that's hard for men too. If you've dealt with a lot of women who have you have not been able to be vulnerable with, you have not been able to trust, who have treated you wrong. It's hard when you find a woman who is emotionally available, who is supportive, who is caring in the ways that you need to be vulnerable and open with her. It goes both ways. It's not an either or situation. And I think that's why a lot of people sometimes mess up relationships. But you learn from that mess up. So when you find someone, hopefully you learn from that mess up. So when you find someone later, or maybe if you're able to fix the relationship that you currently have with this new person, you can have something healthy and good.
You said something else, man? Or you can hear me? Yeah. I thought you had something on the finish.
Did you not hear everything I just said?
No. I thought you froze real fast. I thought you stopped there because it froze. My bad. So my thing is this: I get where you coming from, but I just feel like women have to start also being honest, like they're choosing on like their partners wisely too when it comes to having kids. Obviously, it is some no shit ass motherfuckers out there. We not saying it's not dudes that don't step up to the plate. Nobody dismissing that, but at the same time, it's like you also got to be like honest with yourself and stuff like that when it comes to like choosing who you want to have that child with at the same time, because and also what you said before, it's like a trauma mechanism too. Like when a new dude comes in the picture and stuff like that, it's like at the end of the day, you can't you can't help certain things, but like who you have a child with, you can really prevent. You know what I'm saying? So if you see like certain qualities in that guy that you feel like he's not going to be a good father figure or dude, then why have a child with him? You get that's what I'm saying too. It's like we live in a generation like where we see this stuff happen all the time, because it's not like we don't have excuses anymore, because we're the generation that sees our parents and grandparents go through it, and now we have social media, so it's so many examples of like how this stuff happens. So we should be aware and more cautious on not letting these things go on.
Right, but I think everyone goes into a relationship with rose-colored glasses. Typically, you see what you want to see, and we have to remember we're not talking like a lot of people when they're not married, they have unplanned pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't intentionally trying to have a baby, and that's why it's easy sometimes to say choose wisely, but most people are trying to choose wisely, and then they have a mess up. They have an accident. And it's moving on from that and trying to do the best for your kids, and hopefully you're able to make your relationship work and it's healthy and loving, and you can get married, or if that's what you want, or be long-term partners, something of that nature. But that doesn't always happen. And so I just think it's like an important thing to remember too. And also but I think that's why some people like that's also why the birth rate is declining, is because people have greater access in the United States to things like birth control, condoms, different forms of contraceptives, if necessary, abortion, etc. And so that also influences the birth rate. And typically when people talk about having an accident, accidentally becoming pregnant, it's because either their contraceptive, their birth control failed, or they weren't on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I think the beautiful part about things like birth control, contraceptives, is that it allows for family planning. And that's one of the reasons why in developed nations, the birth rate typically is lower than in developing nations. And so I think in our country, people are, just to go back to like our kind of central topic, people are having kids like less, either not wanting kids or having fewer kids and waiting until later to have kids, is because they realize that kids are a commitment. Parenting is a commitment. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of thought and effort. They want to be married. They want a stable relationship, and they're not willing to settle for less than that. And we can have a debate on if we agree with that statement or not, and what are people meaning by settling and all that type of stuff. But more people are waiting longer to then know themselves, in my opinion, and know their partners and to be stable together before they introduce another living being into the mix. Um, and then also the world that we live in is scary. I think there's a lot of bad things happening, a lot of scary things happening, which make a lot of people go, why would I want to bring a child into this world? Why would I want to add a child, an innocent child, to the mix of all these things that we see that aren't good? And that's influenced by the media, that's influenced by um, social media, you know, just the things we see, you know, influence. Like, do I want to have a kid if I know that this is their potential reality? Um, so that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, and yeah, I see what you're saying. Parent is a tough job, and it's like I
I
just
take it lightly, and
yeah,
that's why
what
I said I don't take parenting lightly. I don't take having a child lightly, and
yeah
that's why when people keep asking me that question, I'm like, why are you rushing me? I am
yeah
25 years old. You know, I'll
right.
be 26 soon, yes, but there's no reason for me to rush into having a child because it's a full-time, lifelong commitment, not 18 years.
Mm. Yeah, parenting
Yeah.
is a tough job, and it's like I feel like me speaking from my experience, like I had like family members and stuff like that, and I've seen them struggle like having to take care of kids and stuff, even when they have a partner there. Like parenting it's a 24/7 job. It's like you just can't like tag out. You know what I'm saying? Like when you don't feel like being a
Right.
parent, it's like you got to be with that child all the time. You have to be there to fulfill their needs all the time. So you know what I'm saying? So I don't have no problem with people like wait until they get older to have kids. That's not my issue at all. It's just like I just feel as though what I was getting at is just choose wisely who you want to have kids with, so that way obviously if divorces happen all the time, but even if it doesn't work out, make sure that that person is going to be there to be a good co-parent, because like I said before, no one deep down, no one wants to be a single parent. I don't care who you are, man, woman, whatever. It's like no, being a single parent, if people do it all the time, but no one really wants to do that. And a way I
Right.
want to transition to that is what you said before. Like it can be scary. It's scary out here raising kids. We're gonna talk about it briefly, like we talked about behind the scenes. I want to talk about the incident that happened in Texas. Um, with the 18 kids that were killed in a mass shooting from an 18-year-old kid. He walked in the classroom and shot up the classroom with the teacher. And I didn't want to really go too deep into it. I just wanted to say thoughts and prayers go out to the families of each person that lost their life that day.
Right.
And I know you're a teacher. How'd you feel about that? You know what I'm saying?
It's terrifying, honestly. Um, it's so sad and it's so scary because the fact of the matter is it could be any school.
Yeah.
It could be any place. And school should be a safe place for all children. They shouldn't have to go to school and worry about that. But that now they in our day and age they do, you know. I know the day after we had a lot of kids who were scared, a lot of kids who were upset, a lot of we spent about an hour just going over and answering their questions, like going over our school procedures for like an active shooter drill, or like if there was an active shooter in the building, answering their questions. And to be honest, none of the answers are good enough, you know, and there is no way to say there would be no casualties, you know. And so it's hard. It's really hard. It's scary. It's sad. And even the students, yes, there were students and teachers who passed away, but even if, you know, the students who are surviving, the teachers who are surviving, they like, my thoughts and prayers are out to them, especially because how do you continue on after an event like that? How do you eventually go back to teaching? How do you eventually one day go back to going to school? You know, that whole community is now devastated for years to come off of these selfish, horrific actions of one person. and lack of actions, as we're coming to find out, of multiple others. Um, and so my thoughts and prayers are out to that whole community, and to all of our teachers and students in this country. We deserve better.
Definitely. I don't have anything else to say about that. What about you?
No.
But like I said before, everybody's Memorial Day weekend. Try to be safe out here. You know, for the people that's driving this weekend, coming to see family, drive safely. You know, if you want to rush somewhere, try to leave early out. You know what I'm saying? So you ain't gotta worry about rushing on the road, because everybody's gonna be on the road this weekend, driving to somebody's house. That sausage link ain't that good. I'm gonna tell you right now. Your uncle that's cooking on the grill, them hamburgers ain't that good to be rushed over to his house to cause an accident. Just slow down out there. And that's all I got to say. Your thoughts?
Right. And I just want to say to everyone, I know things are hard right now. I know there's a lot of unrest in this world. There's a lot of things we're passionate about and that we want to change. And I just want to say, be the change. In Spanish, they say, sea el cambio. So I want you to take that message and be the change in your communities and in this country, because we need it.
Yeah. With that being said, I go by the name of Steph Urkel.
And I'm Imari, also known as Afropuff.
We'll see you next time on another episode. Peace. Yeah. Urkel.